this is not the proper interpretation of the law, but we respect the decision, that ruling by the court. We shall be before this court on Friday at 11 a.m. to argue that application. If the High Court has not agreed with us, we have full instructions to move to the Court of Appeal and to the Supreme Court, because this to us, our clients feel, is political witch hunt, is purely malicious. They are being targeted because of politics, and we will defend our clients to the hill.
That right there is lawyer Danstan Omari, who's representing some of those officers who were part of the now disbanded Special Services Unit at the DCI. First, there were 5 who were arraigned. Tonight, there are 9 of that unit, arrests and charges of extrajudicial killings. Linus, the broom is sweeping at the DCI. What's your take on everything that's been happening? There's also an Indian connection to the same.
One of the most intriguing cases of our times, and this is going to be watched very, very closely by Kenyans, how it progresses, especially when finally, and if the DCI officers are charged in court and evidence adduced. That'll be a very, very important part. Because right now, so far, it's still an accusation, and accusations have to be proved in the court of law. So we're waiting to see, especially on the question of what really happened to these 2 Indians, because there are a lot of stories around their capture and possible killing in somewhere in some forest.
In the Aberdare.
In the Aberdare. So it's going to be a very intriguing case to watch. There is also another lens that will constantly attend to this case, and that is the lens of politics. Considering the pre-election fallout between the administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy at the time, William Ruto, who then became president. There will always be that lens. And one of the people, the then deputy president, now president, had a serious problem with. Among those he mentioned as people fronting the so-called deep state was the director of the criminal investigations, George Kinoti. And so there was that accusation direct there. There was another accusation of the likes of Fred Matiang'i, the CS for Interior, an accusation against the likes of Kibicho. There was an accusation against the Rift Valley Regional commissioner as well. Yeah. And of course, you don't forget the Uasin Gishu County commissioner as well, that was mentioned as those people working against the then deputy president. So when the case starts, and you look at the arguments that have already come even at the preliminary stages about how about the rest of the agencies that are actually involved in security. Yeah. Where are the multi-agency groups? Why DCI? So there's a way this is also going to play out in a very, very political way. Now, there's something that any security analyst would be, and security observer would be very concerned with, and that is the very public, it looks like a purge of the DCI. I don't know how it is like right now to work at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations in Kiambu Road, where George Kinoti was boss, and now we have Mohamed Amin as the new boss. Because obviously, as it happens when there is a change, there's this whole thing of who were you? Were you with the old, working with the old team? So I would imagine the environment at DCI right now may not be very positive, especially for those who may find themselves labeled the old team, Kinoti people. Yeah. And on this, maybe caution should be urged, because what message are we sending also to the teams that do very serious work. Fighting crime is difficult. Fighting terrorism is sacrifice. These people, policemen, military people, they sacrifice their lives. You know, basically, they are the bodies that stand in front of the danger between their countries and that danger. They offer themselves. There is that sacrifice. I think a lot of care should be taken to ensure that morale is not going to be affected by the goings on. And of course, I say this with a lot of care and consideration of victims of extrajudicial killings, victims of disappearances. And you know, the list is long. So there'll be also questions as to, okay, are you going to expand beyond these two Indians? Yeah. Are we going, for example, now to know who killed Chris Msando in 2017? Are we going to know who killed Baby Pendo in Kisumu? Are we going to know who fired, who was this, which policemen were this that were killing people, for example, in 2017 between the first and the second election, shooting them like animals on the street and all that? It also opens you know, a Pandora's box in that sense, because if justice has to be done, it has to be done to everybody and for all. So I think we should be ready for what this means in terms of opening up. And there's a lot of positivity in actually opening this, because we sat here some time back and said state institutions should keep off politics. Yeah. Elections should be run by IEBC. Elections should be run by Anniversary Towers, not Harambee House, not Kiambu Road, not further up, not Thika Road. Let people decide. If this should be the beginning of kicking out what we call the so-called deep state in politics, because in the 2007 election, that element came out, you know, that the election was decided by people other than the voters. 2013, you know, there was that insinuation as well, 2017. And now here is the first time now that we are saying those that wanted to subvert the people's will or to interfere with elections are on the run. So we should be prepared for what this... all the way. To go all the way, because this might just open in 2022 something that has to address all the issues we've had since 2007, and that is the alleged and sometimes proven hand of state agencies in politics. Yeah.
It was inevitable that with the new administration, the security apparatus would witness a total makeover, a total change of guard. Hilary Mutyambai, yes, we were told he retired on medical grounds, but I would think his exit was inevitable. And it is not difficult to see that, because even during the campaigns, his name was mentioned among those who were said to be attempting to subvert the cause of justice and the cause of electoral justice, basically. George Kinoti, yes, we were told he resigned, but I'm one of those people who are convinced that he didn't resign. He was actually... made to resign? He was made to resign, which is euphemism for he was sacked. And not just the top level. If you go to DCI today at Kiambu Road, the top management is new, completely. The director is Mohamed Amin. The deputy is Nicholas Kamwende. The director in charge of operations is Eliud Lagat, a bomb expert, by the way. And so you can tell, John Gashomo, who was director of operations, was moved to internal affairs unit. Yeah. And then a few hours later, that decision was rescinded. Yeah. So you could tell where this discussion was heading to. And not forgetting that he had even sworn some affidavits in court. Yes. Going back on some, you know, some stuff that... in a prominent murder case, right? Yeah, so you can see where this is headed to. And I think it would be important now to clearly tell Kenyans what was SSU, what was its role, how vast was that role, because I'm convinced beyond any doubt that a special unit of the police, and especially at DCI, does not operate in secrecy. It is a known institution, a known outfit in the top hierarchy of the national security agencies. And this is not the first one, by the way. You remember there was Flying Squad? You remember there was Kwekwe at one point? You remember there was another one called Rhino? And so there is a history of these, do I call them crack units? Yeah. There's a history of them. And so every time one is disbanded, it is often replaced by another. Because, truth also be told, fighting crime requires specialization. However, fighting this crime must also be within the rule of law. Yeah. Because is it true that we have many fantastic law enforcers who do a lot of work? Absolutely. Yeah. We have very good security officers. Among them, do we have a small group of them that is trigger happy, participates in extrajudicial killings? Oh yes, we do. Yeah. And so it's a two-pronged kind of a situation. On one hand, maintaining law and order and ensuring that our country is safe. But on the other hand, dealing with those who have engaged in acts or in actions that are against the law.
And I think, Francis, to your point, what ought to come out as well is the place of political instruction in the
security
operations of security officers. Remember in 2017, at the height of those demonstrations, the conduct of the police was questioned. Yeah. And the deputy president at the time, president now, really said, no. Those asking questions of Fred Matiang'i should ask me, wachana nae afanye kazi yake. And that's why I'm saying this is going to be a huge, huge issue. It's a huge debate. It's a huge debate because policemen also act on instructions. They act on orders. That's what they are trained to do. They proceed even on lobbing tear gas on peaceful demonstration, sometimes on political instruction. So we really have to open this and have a huge debate about our political manners in relation to our management of security as well. Now, Francis also mentioned about units. These are operational normalcies in terms of, and even now, I mean, the new DCI, he'll not go and, you know, treat the DCI team as a crowd. There'll be a special crimes unit, for example. There'll be a bomb squad. There'll be
terror unit.
Terror unit.
Crime,
and this is how our security services are grouped. And sometimes it is based on the operational preferences of the leader. That's how they operate. Right now we have our military in Somalia. Operation Linda Inchi has been in place since 2011, if I haven't gotten that wrong. Yeah. They don't come here and ask for political instruction on how to organize themselves on the ground. There are things called tactical formations, which are left to the leaders of those teams. And the case is the same with police. And even on simple things like public order, policemen also organize themselves in tactical formations that do not involve political approval, because that's not how it works. The way it works is the man in charge will make those decisions. So it's not an end. SSU is not the last unit we will have. Mohammed Amin, the new DCI, will have to come up with another name. You can give it whatever name, but there has to be specialized units that will perform certain duties. And of course, what we are saying here is that those jobs do not involve
politicians
breaking the law. Do we forget, for example, what were policemen doing at Jimmy Wanjigi's house in 2018? Camping there, breaking the door, and that's unlawful. I mean, what law allows them to do that? You know, they created things, but we all know that it was under political instruction as well. So, are we ready for this discussion as a country? It is time we held it indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
But it's a very difficult discussion. Very difficult discussion because if you start here, you must go all the way back.
Yeah.
But it boils down to two things: operational and financial independence of our security agencies. Because as long as their budgets, as long as instructions are coming from Harambee House, we will continue to witness these kind of discussions that we are. Unfortunately, the lawbreakers and the threat, national security threat, is still alive. So even as we have this discussion, we must also not forget that there are many, many, many Kenyans, 50 million plus of them, who are still relying on these law enforcers to make sure that they are safe and secure, themselves and their property.
Let me just add to your point on financial independence. Yes, that is important. But the most important independence is a mindset independence that now says you operate this way as the Inspector General of Police. You cannot be directed by any other person. Is that mindset there yet?
How now?
Yep.
Difficult conversations that we must have.